Okay, I've had some requests to show a little bit more info about how I made the screen printing stand that I made. I took it apart so that I could show a little bit more detail about what I did to put it together. And the first thing is that these two pieces of plywood here, I mean it's not plywood, 2x4, two pieces of 2x4 here. And I spaced them, I don't know, about a foot apart. And then I put one piece of 2x4 across the two of them and screwed it into the stand. Now, yeah, you're seeing a little bit more than just two pieces of 2x4 because I've put these spacers in here as well. You can see them there. So what's this space in the middle? It's the width of a 2x4. So how this works, I'm going to grab this and how do I turn this around? Can I? We can see the two bases, and then we have one cross member across them, and then we've got these spacers here. And now the last piece of this that goes on is the 2x4, and the 2x4 actually will get screwed in to the space in the middle. And now what this 2x4 does is it holds the piece that holds onto the shirt. Like I said, I took it all apart to show you how it goes together. So I'm going to put this piece back on. Okay, so now we have the basic stand back together. We've got the two base pieces. We've got the cross member all the way across. We've got the spacers, and they are spaced the width of a 2x4 apart. And this 2x4 runs parallel to the bottom stands so that when we look at it like this, we've got this piece here, but a space under it, so that it goes above these and under this center one. So then the next piece we have is we put the plywood on top. And now the plywood is roughly shaped like a t-shirt. So it's upside down now. This would be the neck. And down here, this would be where the bottom of the shirt would be. So I'm going to screw this back in place. Okay, I've put two screws through this centerpiece, and you'll notice that this plywood and this 2x are at different heights. And now I could just actually screen print right on the plywood, but it's got all these grooves in it. And I even tried to sand it down a little bit so that it wouldn't have the grooves, but I couldn't get away from it. So I have a piece of basically cardboard. I don't know what they call this. This is the same stuff they make pegboard out of this stuff. So it's the same stuff. So I took a piece of this and I cut it the same size as the plywood, and now I'm going to screw that to the plywood. So covering the plywood with this does a couple of different things. One, it covers the screws. So the screws that are holding this to the 2x4, both here and back here. So those screws are now covered with this flat surface, and it also puts all of the connecting screws to the outside four corners so that I don't have to worry about the screw hole showing up on the shirt. Again, we still have a difference in height between this back where the hinges go and up here where the shirts go. So I had cut a piece of plywood of the same material as this here, and I'm using this as a spacer in the back. So what will happen is the hinges will sit on this, and it will make it the same height as the shirt system, and it also leaves a little gap in here where the excess t-shirt fits into and doesn't scrunch up against the screen. So I'm going to screw this one down now. So the plywood is across the back. Now I'll be reattaching my hinges. So the hinges will actually just kind of fit on here. What's kind of nice is that they'll just fit right into the same screw holes that I've already got. I've already done all my measuring to make sure everything fits. And I'm just putting it back together. So these will go here. So give me a moment. I'll put this down and screw those in. So the hinges are now reattached back in the same spot that they were before. And essentially that's the whole stand. Let me turn this around to an angle that we would be setting it at if we were using it. So you can see the two base pieces, the space underneath, the 2x4 on the bottom, which I've narrowed down to fit a shirt a little bit easier, the plywood, which is in the shape roughly of a shirt, and the hinges. So I will put this down again and put a screen in so you can see how that fits. So I've grabbed the screen. This is the screen that I've used to make most of my t-shirts. It has the name of my book on it, which I'm trying to sell, of course. So you would put the screen on top of the hinges. And what's kind of nice is I've measured the center here and made a line on the screen so that I know that I'm centered. I squeeze this into the hinges, and I've also got a little something extra. I've got a piece of wood here that I had kicking around. Made a couple of bought a couple of eye hooks and a small spring. The spring was 8 cents. So, but what the spring does is if I were to connect the spring to the eye hook on the base here, I'm going to put this down, and you got to stretch this so that the spring is stretched between the eye hook on the base and the eye hook on this little piece of wood, and then tighten down the hinge, and it will stay in place. Well, you would think, huh? Of course, it always stays in place except when I'm on camera. Let's try this again. So connect it down and screw it into place. And there we go. Now it'll stay in spot. So it's holding that. Now what's nice is when I lift this, the spring will hold this up so that when I'm screen printing a shirt, if I'm done, I can pull the shirt off, put the next one on, settle it down, and then drop the screen again in the stand. So the stand cost me next to nothing. I had the pieces of wood laying around, really not very long pieces of 2x4. All you got to make sure is that these sections are straight, and then when you get the pieces of 2x4 screwed together, it's really not that hard. I made the screens also myself. I purchased the screen material off of Amazon, and then I stretched the screen over a frame that I made myself. And now I also keep my screens in this cabinet, which I also made. So this is my emulsion drying cabinet, but when I'm not actively working on something, I just store the screens in there. But again, so that is a breakdown of how to build this and put it together so that everything is a relative height and you can work off of that. Thanks. Not much else. I guess if you liked it, subscribe, but I don't put off that many videos. Really, just take it, make some shirts, maybe send somebody to go and buy one of my books. That's the name of the book.